Hello, and welcome to this exclusive roundtable discussion on the impact of AI on B2B marketing. I'm Matt Egan, the Chief Content Officer of Demand AI, and I'm joined here by my colleague, our Chief Operating Officer, Bhavesh Thakor. We have a wonderful panel of experts with decades of experience at the cutting edge of B2B marketing, AI, and business leadership, and I'm really excited for a great discussion. So let's get started by introducing our panel of global leaders. Over here we have Kunal Aman from SAS, currently Regional Lead of the Marketing and Communications Charter for SAS. Kunal is a marketing and business leader with a rich experience across marketing, corporate strategy and communications, so welcome Kunal. Arunava Chakrabarty, Chief Operating Officer at techpay.ai. Arunava has almost 30 years of experience in scaling partner ecosystems and driving operational excellence across the Asia Pacific region, and we're delighted to have you.
Thank you, glad to be here.
And last but not least, we have Peter Yorke. He's a Senior Strategy and Marketing Leader, a Board Advisor and an experienced CEO with nearly 40 years of experience. Peter currently serves as a Senior VP of Marketing for Suntech. So welcome to our esteemed panel. And I'd like to start by just having a general level set, okay? So we've been through the initial hype cycle around AI, brought on by ChatGPT's launch, maybe from a consumer perspective. We've seen the rise of generative and agentic AI, and it feels like we're reaching the point where AI, to your point, Bhavesh, is hygiene, right? It's part of everything that we do. I'd love to hear in a few words from all of you, like what your experience of AI is to this point. Where are we now, both in terms of your own business practice and what you see in the wider industry? And let's start with Kunal.
Thanks for having me, Matt. So I think considering that the last few years we've seen AI continuously dominate headlines, it does feel that it's such a transformative shift, first of all. And over a period of time, I think forward-looking organizations have already experimented with it, right? And they've learned a few lessons, which I think has served them well and served the industry rather well. But at the same time, if you kind of zoom out, I firmly believe that we're still seeing possibly some of the more nascent stages of AI, right? So maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, you'll look back on this episode and think, oh, we didn't even know what we were talking about, right? So I think AI currently has both promise as well as peril, and it depends upon how sharp our use cases, especially when it comes to marketing, if you really want to realize ROI, right? So I think we're still, as I said, in the early stages. There's much to be experimented with, but at the same time, what I'm really also glad about is that we're doing this in a more conscious way. We're already talking about what could be the guardrails that we need to be careful about. What should we put that? How do we put that in place? So that, I think, for me is extremely positive. And I think it's an exciting time to be a marketer.
It's a very exciting, thank you for that. It's a very exciting time, but I love that sort of note of reality, right? Like there's the potential and there's the reality, and we're going to dig into some of those thoughts, I think. Thank you. Arunava.
Yeah, I think, agree with everything that he just said. And being a non-marketer, probably in this group, I think one of the things that I do want to commend, because I think marketing as a segment across industries is probably, really taking the lead in terms of how AI really, comes into workflows within organizations. I think, especially in the tech sector, which is something that I'm most close to, I see a lot going on there. So the initial apprehensions to test cases, to use cases, to tools out there. So both marketeers as well as companies that are developing various tools that kind of aid marketeers to go to market in various forms. I think it's come a long way, and I think it's going to be one of those areas where I think most of the other business operations and functions should kind of look at how marketeers are driving and leveraging the value of AI, the data, the insights, the intelligence, and then taking and maybe even driving decision making to some extent. Completely agree with Kunal that it's still nascent, very early stages. I think we are still trying to fill in existing workflows rather than saying, how does the human and the AI capabilities come together to completely, change dimensions and make it smarter workflows, which are very different from what the old school plays have been. But net, I think it's definitely becoming like an intrinsic layer as part of either tests and experiments or conversations where leadership across the industry is really looking at what does it mean for them to bring AI into the fore and make them part of the co-pilot across various different functions.
So marketing almost becomes like the testing ground for some of these theories, but I completely agree. It feels at the minute like what we're doing is a little bit existing practices made faster rather than rethinking the entire piece. And Peter, your thoughts?
So if you look down at the history of invention through mankind and through humankind, there's always something that is a path-breaking moment, and then there are things that keep improving. There are innovations that keep happening, and then and I think we are at this point where it's not just something that we consume or use, but we're also part of that whole invention. So we can contribute back to whatever needs to be done. And if you look at the progress that has been made, as an example, over the last, over days and weeks, there's always something new coming into the market. And part of it comes because of our own interaction with the AI tools that are out there. So I think in as much as we may not be, running some of the big AI engines, but by virtue of just consumption, we're actually contributing back to the ecosystem, and that is leading to newer and newer use cases. So I think it's a great time for marketing at this point, because as long as you see it as an asset and something that can aid the kind of work that you're doing and make you do it faster, at the end of the day, what does sales demand? They want leads closed faster. So if you're able to do that, you're one up on everybody else.
And I love that mindset, right? We're kind of contributing to it as well as being consumers of it.
I think that's what we do.
Yeah, interesting. And actually, to go back to something Arunava said, a lot of what's happening, or a lot of what's material that's happened to this point has been this idea of human processes, automation. If AI can do it, AI should do it. And I think it is fair to say that automation of toil is some of the lowest hanging fruits, like making existing processes more efficient. So if we could just roll back a little bit to that, is that something, Peter, that you're seeing in your practice? Like are we able to do the existing things faster?
It is, and I remember early on in my career when I was in TCS way back somewhere in 1990, 91, and I was also involved in training over there, part of the process. And the training department one day called me and said that, look, you conduct this training on content and marketing and all the rest of it, and we have this bunch of people who are like in their 50s, and they were punch entry operators. Okay, now punch entry technology was like way back, 70s and 60s, whatever it is. And they said, we want you to train them to now start using newer tools. The internet had come in and there were newer tools being used. So I don't think this is not something that is so path-breaking and changing that is kind of breaking something. Learning, relearning, developing, this is all part of the course of life. And at the rate of which, let's face it, we are not in that industrial age where it took 100 years, for hydraulic power to kind of be manifested. Today, things change in 7 years. When I teach in university, I tell them, I said, in 7 years, things are going to change. So don't think that you get out of this place with a degree and then you're not going to see, you've learned everything in your life. It's going to change at a rapid pace. So training has been part of the deal, retraining. And I think this is just one more moment that we are facing, which should be looked at in a more positive kind of manner, is what I think.
But do you think does it require upskilling of the existing staff, or do you require an external resources with expertise on AI that you need to bring in now?
I tend to take a very simplistic view of life, and my simplistic view of life is that if you're smart enough and you have common sense, you can pretty much learn more or less what it is. You need some element of polishing and learning to do things. But it's like learning to drive a car, or when you buy a new car, you know the basic functionality in the car. You can ask somebody for tips and tricks and go and look at some YouTube videos to get yourself a little more expertise on that kind of particular brand of car. But I think you've got to approach it with the same mindset, with the same at least that's what I think. I don't know. What you guys think about
I totally agree. And I think, there are tools that AI brings to the table as well, which just makes it easier, because interaction, leveraging the technology, as long as you have expertise and domain knowledge, I think it's very easy for somebody, irrespective of where they are in their career, it's very easy to pick it up. And I think today the way a lot of information, data, research, creativity is kind of enabled. I mean, just a simple notebook LLM can just throw so much of information at somebody.
Yeah.
It's I think it's more in the mindset to kind of imbibe some of these values and benefits, because I do see a lot of apprehension going back to where you started off, saying that, you know, there is the apprehension about, you know, AI is going to take away my job and so on and so forth. But I think it's more about reskilling of sorts, but that reskilling is not going back to the university and taking a course for 6 months and building talent. I mean, it's just about, you know, leveraging what you know into technologies that are making it very easy for you to start using AI.
Yeah. And actually, if you ask me, this thing about, you know, AI is going to take away my job, I think is just a factor of media players. I think some journalists wanted a smart, you know, a different angle on the whole thing.
Well, I will say, and we will hear from you shortly, Kunal, but like, I would say, as a recovering journalist myself, like, what I would say to teams of journalists when I manage them was, if AI can do your job, it will. But like, if your job is to generate human insights, like, AI can help you do it. But I don't know what's been your thoughts.
I think, you know, I remember the time when ChatGPT was launched, right? Till then, no one even knew OpenAI, to be quite honest. Right?
Yeah.
And the moment ChatGPT was launched and people started
Toying
about with ChatGPT, that's the next day or two were crazy, because everyone was saying, "Oh man, this is stuff that we have never seen before.
Yeah.
This is going to take away our jobs, right?" And after 10 days, when everyone started using ChatGPT, then came the realization, oh, why is it so slow? You know, why is it not giving me exactly what I'm looking for?
Yeah.
So I think part of that is very human, right? We kind of always, we get a little intimidated by the technology itself. Then we adapt it, and then we realize, hey, it's not so good. It's not complete in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So we go back and start complaining about why is it not as good as it should be, at least in our minds. So I think there is that human behavioral element that seeps in, and on a separate thread, I think 3 years ago, I was reading a report by World Economic Forum, which said that today skilling is such an important aspect of what we're doing, and the half-life of skills itself has gone down from 10 years before to now 5 years. So, and it's increasingly shrinking, right? And by skills, it doesn't mean foundational skills, but essentially what you put it on your resume and get a job, right? So today, knowing AI has a lot of value, right? You can put some credentials from universities or tech vendors themselves give credentials, and that has value in the industry. But again, the point is that is good for maybe 3 years. Yeah. And then again, you're in that cycle. So I think point being that today everyone has to change their mindsets from saying, yes, I knew the skill and I'm really proficient, to saying I know the skill, I know in 3 years again something might happen which might require me to invest in learning. So the future will be, future of marketing or future of in the industry will be really driven by employees who can learn, unlearn, and then relearn. Right?
And maybe understand the basic fundamentals, right? Like so if you understand what we're trying to achieve, you can use increasingly developed tools to do it. And one area of that from a marketing perspective is the idea of using AI to generate insights, right, from the data that we hold. And data, I guess, is the global currency, certainly of marketing. And we do hear a lot about the ability of AI to pass actionable insights from data. And again, like many things, I think conceptually that's where we are, but data, access to data, the ability of humans to use insights to drive actions kind of all vary, and there are different factors around that. So again, I'd love to hear from you guys about what you're seeing now around using AI to generate sort of actionable insights from data.
Right now, the way AI is being kind of operationalized is primarily, when it's working with large data sets, and we're trying to glean insights from maybe marrying different sets of data, finding patterns, and then basically deriving an insight. And from a marketing standpoint, I think that's great, right? Because especially when you're dealing with such volumes, tools like analytics and AI definitely give you a great edge. But I still believe that that's still upper funnel sort of tactic, or operationalizing that has been done. Marketing, I think, especially B2B marketing, has a very messy middle, if you will, right? And that requires so much more human intervention, right? So much more context, right? Because it's not just about, generating fantastic headlines and A/B testing on scale. It has to go beyond just that level to a point where we are trying to understand what is the buying committee, what is keeping up with the buying committee at night, what does the purchase cycle look like, who needs to be mapped, right, who needs to be convinced, and all of that is a very human element. So I think that's where especially B2B buying has got a very human element that needs to be a very integral part of the entire process. So I believe that AI has, of course, a lot of value to be added within the marketing, whether it's content creation, whether it's insight generation, automation, and at the scale. But at the same time, it can't do so many other things which are so vital for us to really push that whole acceleration, give that acceleration to the deal, right? So that's a piece that is extremely.
Do you believe that, have you been able to crack the code with AI that you'll be able to get more insight, and do you believe that AI is going to help you get better insights and better analytics than what you would get it earlier? And does that then therefore help you in that messy middle of the funnel kind of a approach that you take, right, based on that insight?
So definitely, I would say that SaaS is essentially a data and AI company, right? Yeah. So we've been there, basically customer zero for ourselves. Right? So the moment we start building a product, we know we're ready. Marketing, or for that matter, other departments in the organization typically start adopting it. Yeah. So all our dashboards are SaaS technology. So we use SaaS Wire. Similarly, from a marketing standpoint as well, right? We invested in a marketing sciences team, which essentially helps the marketing department glean these insights, and they are essentially using all AI as well as ML tools to come up with that. Now, does AI help? Absolutely, because so much of the lead scoring today internally is completely algorithm driven, right? So, and that essentially, and by the way, we are testing algorithms time and again. Is it really giving us the sort of uplift in terms of conversion, right? Is it really delivering the value? Yeah. So we're trying out different champion and challenger models, and then we're deploying those. So and that is giving us great results. So again, it's an iterative based approach. But yes, the lead scoring is one such area which has given us fantastic results, and all of that is, by the way, coming through from multiple channels. So external channels, intent-driven programs that we are driving in the market, internal digital footprint, data. So there's just so much of data, and I think that's where AI and especially ML, I would say it's a subset of AI, is supporting us in a big way.
But your organization might actually be like, in some ways, too good a use case, right? Because you're kind of set up for that. So I'm really interested, Arunava, to hear from you, because I know you work with organizations who are maybe aspiring to do some of these things with some more challenges in place.
Right. I think there are two parts to this, and I think to the question, is it helping? Absolutely, yes. It's definitely way better in terms of getting the right kind of data, more accurate data, enabling insights that can lead to better decision making and hence actions. But I think there is still a large part of customers that we engage with as we are kind of building multiple different products which cater to other functions beyond marketing as well, wherein the challenge is really about the fragmentation of data. As well as the siloed nature, especially in complex organizations, large MNCs and organizations, where you kind of have the data, but it's like unstructured swamps where it lies in. The owners of where the data comes in is not necessarily where the data is going to be used if you applied AI. it's not a seamless pipe through which the data flows, and I think that's a big challenge. And that's going to be an iterative process as you kind of enter organizations, and in bits and pieces show the value of how AI and insights is really enabling them. It applies to marketing, applies to any other business function for that matter, and that I think is going to take time. So that's for very large organizations. Now, on the other hand, you have smaller organizations which do not even have the data, but they probably have more need for driving efficient processes because cost to them is immensely important. It's not that it's not important for large organizations, but in these cases, the pool of and the budgets and revenue, etc., is smaller. So I think there are those two plays which kind of has to be tested out and stuff. It's happening in parts, but having a very tops-down executive vision to kind of enable this to happen such that AI is fully leveraged, it's going to take its own cycle and time. That's what we are seeing. So it's kind of a constant grind, enabling and telling people that it's garbage in, garbage out. You need to ensure that you have the right set of data to enable certain parts of your businesses. This is how it can help you. And I'm sure it's us and many like us that are going and driving this conversation on an ongoing basis. But the movement is very, very rapid. I mean, as soon as they see value, I think their adoption rapidly increases relative to any other technology that we've seen in the past.
Well, and maybe it's like, I think it was you, Kunal, as I said at the beginning, like where we are now might seem really old-fashioned in the future, but it's that slog to get there kind of thing. But you look around and we've gone much further than we thought.
Absolutely.
I wonder if we could talk about content creation, Peter, because I know, like me, you're a content guy at heart. And like me, probably when GPT first came along, there was an element of, I was one of those employees who felt a bit threatened, right? By technology that felt like it could do something. However, my experience has been that AI can be a great enhancer of human insights and creativity. And within our organization, Demand AI, our Amplify platform offers consumers of content the ability to access insights from content in a way that was previously not possible. So I wonder what's been your experience of the impact of AI on content creation.
Yeah, see, in a B2B marketing kind of scenario, first of all, the kind of influence that you want to, kind of put on your customers or your prospects has to be something that is deep. It has to be something that's meaningful. And for that, you need to have a good number of sources of research that you're kind of working with. You've got to get the facts and figures right. You've got to get, insights put together. Now, you may have an idea that is original and that is something that's in your mind. And that is something that, probably AI will not replace. But AI can help to enhance that. And I think that is really the key in this game. So, if you have the necessary experience in a particular technology, you will be able to talk about it. But to get the research of what's happening widely in the market, with certain industry segments, with certain geographies, that is something that AI kind of brings to the table. And I think that is immensely valuable because it does it also in a relatively short period of time. Yeah, we had the issue of hallucination in the early days and all that, but I think now we are past that. I think we've moved past that kind of stage. So I look at it as a very, very capable assistant. And I treat it as such because in my content creation process, the kind of styles I want, the templates I want, the outputs I want, as I would do for a new recruit, I do the same here. I tell it. So if a couple of days back I came across an interesting report and I just fed it into the LLM and said, look, this will come into use in the future when we are doing a blog on something. So consume it and keep it there, that kind of stuff. So I think that's been the biggest thing that
it's an enabler and an expediter.
It's an enabler and it's very efficient here. And the other thing is, as humans, let's admit it here, we tend to make mistakes. So you always have somebody making a mistake, but here this doesn't really, if you really look at it.
If it's trained on the right information.
If it's trained on the right information, you've got to give it that training. So you can't expect it to kind of generate thoughts, generate content and generate all that. It has to be kind of trained. So you have to spend, sometimes I could be writing a prompt which is a page long or more. But the more I am able to input, the more I am able to get out of it. So I find it immensely valuable from that point of view.
Kunal, are you using it to your advantage from content creation or communication creation?
To Peter's point, I think AI is like a fantastic teammate, right? You could call it an intern or a teammate or whatever. Bad boss though, right?
Absolutely.
So you got to set the strategy.
Yeah.
You got to give it the right prompts and all the right inputs, and then hopefully it'll give you what you need, right? So I think to Peter's point again, content is such a great example because, for example, in very diverse markets like Middle East, Turkey, you can imagine the translation effort that otherwise you might want to put as well. Right?
Yeah.
And that's, again, can be really fast tracked.
Yeah.
And all you need to do is make sure that the copy is right. The relevance is there, the context is right. And it does make mistakes. I mean, it's not that, so you need to have then human oversight.
Yep.
But it can be fast tracked.
Yes,
definitely.
So use case can be made multiple.
Absolutely. Right? You can take this whole episode of a podcast and repurpose it into a blog. You just feed the audio file and it'll generate the transcript as an example, right?
Yeah.
So all of that is, which used to take hours, if not days, can be all crunched into minutes.
True.
Yeah, so I think it's a fantastic use case.
I completely agree, and we will thank you for the tip on the blog. But one of the things we've often talked about is this idea of, and you mentioned it earlier actually, Kunal, like hyper-personalization and nurture at scale, like the idea of that messy middle kind of going away, right? That's the nirvana we're aiming for. And that's been the sort of dream, I think, from a marketing perspective for a long time, like the idea that we can have a one-to-one conversation with buyers from the same asset in Turkey, in UAE, to use your example, their personalized communications on a global scale. And I think what we just described, both in terms of data and content, suggests progress towards that. But it sounds like we don't think we are fully at the point where we can talk about hyper-personalization and nurture at scale. But I'd love to hear from any of you your thoughts on.
No, I think the biggest use case, like Kunal said, is this whole thing of being able to repurpose assets and repurpose content and address it to newer and newer audiences. As you kind of evolve in the journey of the company itself.
Yeah.
Because you're addressing new markets. For example, if I'm opening up a new market, I need to be able to kind of personalize my content to address a particular segment. Today, average number of buyers in a B2B sale could be anything from 7 to 9 or 10 people.
Yeah.
How do I address the same piece of content
In a different way.
in different ways? And to the CFO, it's a different language. To the CIO, it's a different language.
Well, and it might literally be a different language if they're in different locations.
And
right?
different locations. I mean, that's on top of that. And do it all very quickly.
Yeah.
In a manner that I can, strike when the iron is hot. And I think that's the biggest use case that I find personally that we're using actually. Right?
And there is a cost element to it because every time you create different assets, there's a cost element, time element to it, right? And I think that's where it has enabled it and made it faster.
And you see, the point is that I've been working in Suntech for the last, 6 years. We've created on an average about 100 assets every year. Now, do I go back to the assets I created, in 2020, 21, 22 and try to repurpose them? We don't do that as a practice. But here, you can actually pick it up, infuse it with new insights, data, whatever it is. Your base content of 60% is ready to use. And then you have the remaining part which you can, kind of enhance. Using the tool.
But the benefit is not just an increased volume of output, it's the fact that you're able to reach those different personas.
Absolutely, and it's not about volume. In fact, your volume over the period of time may actually decrease.
Yeah.
But the kind of meaningfulness of the content kind of increases.
Yeah.
Because you're being very sharp in terms of how you're focusing. The other thing, that we use it for is to create this base layer of what I like to call microwavable content. Content that you keep ready for use, and then you kind of, nurture it or garner it in a particular way that can be addressed to a particular audience. Okay, so it's just like a microwave dish. It's in the fridge. You come in there, you heat it up for 5 minutes, it's ready to consume.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Your data, your insights, all that is packaged together.
Yeah.
But the way you kind of deploy it is where you prompt it to do something in a particular direction. And that's what you do. And it's much easier that way rather than trying to create something from scratch when you have to do so. Because you know how sales are. Absolutely intolerant. They'll walk into the room and say, hey, I'm going for a meeting in 2 hours. Can you generate something for me?
Yeah.
That's...
But talking about hyper-personalization, is it overrated or is it very important from a marketeer's perspective?
So look, I think hyper-personalization has been around for a while now, to be honest. AI or no AI, right? It's to do it with the, as long as you have data and you have analytics, we were always able to do. And marketing to markets of one has always been that holy grail. Whether you are in B2C, trying to find out what that telecom subscriber would like to do, what should I market to him, or in B2B, where you're trying to think about accounts, and
Contacts,
buyer committees, and so on and so forth. How do I come down to that, one single person and personalize my touch? So I think the concept has been around for a while. The tools that we have been using are changing. That's all there is to it, right? So today, yes, again, what has AI helped us? It has helped us in supercharging all of this, supercharging content, repurposing it, crunching the whole timelines, ensuring that we are able to, go to market faster. So account-based marketing, for example, in B2B's context, classic example where we can actually deploy all of that and get all of it done in a much quicker time. But for example, account-based, let's take account-based marketing. It's always been about personalization, but in my opinion, it's more about orchestration, right? There is a delicate dance that sales, customer advisory or pre-sales, marketing, customer success needs to play and orchestrate that whole journey. It is not just about content creation, which is where AI can, of course, supercharge things, but it's about the other pieces all falling in place that really create that magic. Right? And that magic requires human plus AI, right? Or tools plus humans, whatever. Now that tool is changing, as I said, and this time it's AI. So that's where.
And I guess to your previous point, not every organization is remotely in place to do all of these.
I think there's another piece. I mean, in line with what he just said, extending that, and he kind of covered that. But I think in some of my customers, who I deal with not as a marketeer, but as in terms of business consulting and stuff like that, we've always been very cautious that while the hyper personalization is important, a lot of them consider that to be on autopilot. And I think, to Kunal's point, the human in the loop, the emotion, bringing it and connecting it back to saying, how does that hyper-personalization then link back to what sales is talking to them, pre-sales is talking to them, customer success is talking to them, and the marketer in the loop, to Peter's point as well. You need to be able to ensure that you are bringing in content that kind of stays relevant. It shouldn't be a machine talking to the individual, but it needs to showcase the emotion behind it as well. Which, in this phase of testing, a lot of organizations just leave it to the system to go and drive, and that I think is going to be an overload, and that will eventually become junk mail. So,
and it's dangerous, right? Because junk mail is exactly right. Because if it's close but not right, and you're aware that you're being marketed to in an orchestrated way, that's a lot worse than not being marketed to.
That's right.
And it actually brings us to another point I wanted to talk about, which is another holy grail, which is ROI, right? Like demonstrating return on investment. And actually, let's stay with you because you're working with customers outside of marketing, but on these kind of things. All of this is very exciting. Kunal, you've mentioned it several times, right? All these movements, things are going forward. Peter, you're clearly using this in your work and your practice, and that's great. But if our job is to engage active buyers and generate return on investment for employers, or to your point, sales, in the end, we want to be able to show some return on investment. And I don't know, in your experience, is that possible at this point?
I think it's possible. I think there are elements of it which are tangible in terms of benefits, and there are other elements which are intangible. And the intangible is again a function of how orchestration happens. I mean, I really like the way that he put it, because your tangible ROI across all the stuff that you're doing as part of your B2B marketing has to kind of align to what sales is doing, what the pricing teams are enabling you with, where is how content is being being sent out there, and how do you then post campaigns nurture customers, right? And it's just one part of it. Linking that back to saying how do you do the handoff from there to sales, and how does that get translated? Because you definitely see a higher rate of conversion as things move through the pipe from an ICP definition to intent to intelligence to getting various forms of technographic, firmographic data and so on and so forth. So I think you're equipping the system with a lot of knowledge, translating that, whether it is through the hyper-personalized communication, getting responses back from them. We are definitely seeing the systems being able to generate better open rates, better conversions, multiple times that people are responding to C2A. but the handoff is going to be very important to finally translate that to revenue. So how does the sales interlock, come in? I think it's going to be a big part of ROI. That's more just coming in from that marketing standpoint. Across other functions as well, it's the same, because it's again going back to saying this can help you do this. On paper, that sounds great. The proof of it is when you get the pudding there and you taste it. But then at the end of the day, I think it's starting to show value as you are able to connect the dots. Things are improving, efficiencies are increasing, time taken to move things from point A to point B, which used to take days or weeks, is now coming down. So there is value that people start seeing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of happening from the top. I mean, as you go down the chain, it's just that it's almost like a bell curve. You have early adopters, you kind of then are in that ramp phase right now, but it's happening much faster than any other technology ramp that we've seen in history. So in that sense, I'm sure it's going to translate to something that is immediately seen as tangible value in a short period of time.
The thing is that when you are running a marketing program and you've got multiple sources of information that's coming in, I think the biggest thing that I see is being able to assimilate all that and create a trend out of it, which kind of finally shows how it's resulting in actually getting the customer through the door. I think so. One big fight that always happens between sales and marketing is attribution, as an example.
Yeah.
Who brought the first lead in for the sales or marketing? And if you have enough of sufficient data to kind of prove that marketing actually did it, and it was and then the conversation was taken forward, and that data is constantly being monitored and looked at, and then proving ROI becomes much more easier for a function like marketing. We are finding that actually to be one of the main things, particularly in the world we're working with.
I think it's a classical, fight that's always been that attribution, right? But do you think, Kunal, from a global, being part of the global organization and global teams, right, where do you think AI has kind of changed the definition of ROI or the way you measure ROI? I mean, has it changed in the last 1 year or 2 years rather, or is it still the same way that you calculate ROI?
So I think the foundations of ROI measurement essentially remain the same.
Right.
But what AI has done, I think we discussed this at length in terms of the crunching of times and the cycles of creation of content, of driving better leads or more, the scoring aspects. Those have definitely changed in terms of what it can deliver. So there's been largely productivity gains and efficiency gains, and of course, customer centricity again being one of those third pillars which AI can definitely impact. But specifically for B2B, I think the larger question remains, how has AI really shifted the needle when it comes to deal velocity? Has it crunched the overall sales cycle time? Has it brought in better quality leads? Is your conversion uplift really meaningful after you adopted AI?
Yeah.
So I think those are some of those fundamental questions that really the business will care about, not just marketing.
Yeah.
So that I think is where the industry will start focusing beyond just some of the metrics that might be tracked today, right? Maybe it's more activity level at this point in time.
Yeah.
But I think moving forward, it'll be more business metrics.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my
100%.
my sense on it.
Well, thanks so much for a wonderful discussion so far. I feel like we could go on all night, and unfortunately we're not able to do that. But so I wondered if we could get some final thoughts, and I was thinking maybe, our audience will be principally made up of B2B marketers. So it'd be great if there was any, just a few words of advice or thoughts that you would give to a B2B marketer, knowing what we know now about the impact of AI. And I'll start with you, Peter, if that's okay.
Yeah, so like I said, we're in the experimentation phase, and this will continue for some time. We need to have an open mindset to what we want, but I think it's important for us to know what we want and what is the outcome that we want from this, and that's the best way we can leverage AI. But at the rate at which things are going, I'd be very interested to have a similar conversation 6 months down the line, because I'm sure our answers will change.
Yeah, I'll hold you to that. Okay. Arunava?
So,
yeah, I think to maybe summarize, there are a few things which I think would be exciting to see. Adding on to what Peter just said, in terms of people, process, and systems. And what I mean there would be that, from a people standpoint, in terms of the whole mindset conversation that we had earlier, in terms of what it means, how does it add value to me and my function? And I'm just using it as a person, but it could be a person or an entity or a company. The second one, I think the resistance that comes in more from a system standpoint today, there is still apprehension about, integrating AI tools in environments. And there are perceived vulnerabilities and maybe some that are real. I think, that would be a very critical hump to go over for, seeing mainstream adoption of AI, right? And that's one of the other pieces. And third, I think, going back to a point I made, which was around ensuring, and this is probably a forcing function for people to really see how, data is kind of created seamlessly in terms of how it's used across organizations, which will make it very meaningful, which kind of also impacts and helps drive the ROI conversation, because you then see, the entire data lakes, you kind of extract what is most meaningful across different functions, marketing and others. Marketing remains a very key anchor to that, because that really is going to be the engine that portrays and takes communication out to clients of all businesses. So that's where I think I see that evolution happening. Very similar to Peter, I think this conversation and whatever I'm saying might be completely irrelevant 6 months down because we would have gone over that hump.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think going back to where I started, I think very early days for AI and exciting times as a marketer. Marketing, I think, as a function, we have evolved to a point where we have to operate at the crossroads of marketing and technology, and we need to be very comfortable doing that. The other piece is that I think leaders need to start looking at their marketing organizations as perennially learning organizations, right? And for any marketer today, I think it's non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I think AI, of course, has a lot of promise, but it does contain peril as well. So you've got to be playing that balancing act, and being the devil's advocate is that what are we really sacrificing? Are there enough guardrails, right? So I think those questions again hold a lot of water at this point in time. We need to be very, very, very purposeful in the way we are kind of adopting AI. I think it's going to be an exciting time. Also something that I think is going to be challenging, because the rate of change is amazing.
But it's better than being bored, right? I would say. Yeah.
But as a tech evangelist yourself, what is your take on it?
No, I think what we've heard is absolutely perfect, right? It's that we're making progress on many different fronts, right? Which maybe we don't always recognize, right? And to the point several of you made, you look back and you realize how far we've come, kind of thing. But I think you've all also made the point that we're not in nirvana, right? It's not perfect yet. And that, I love that word of caution, because it's like we want to push ahead as fast as we can without breaking things. And that's where we are, I would say. Thank you for asking, Bhavesh. I appreciate it. So thank you so much, and thanks to our wonderful panel of experts, to Kunal, Aman, Arunava, Chakrabarty, and Peter Yorke. And to you, Bhavesh, Thakor, thank you so much for being with you. My name's Matt Egan. I'm the Chief Content Officer of Demand AI. We really appreciate your attention today. We hope you enjoyed the session. Thanks and goodbye.